We are following breaking news out of Stockholm, Sweden, where a truck crashed into a department store. As we see here, we have a live look from the scene. This is the area where the truck crashed, and we're learning that it killed 3 people. According to a Swedish broadcaster, shots have been fired. And I have a video here from social media from a bystander. People are fleeing the streets, and this is when they didn't know what was happening at the time.
Well, I'm joined on the phone now from Stockholm by Linda Flood. You're an eyewitness to the terror, the chaos that happened after this attack. Tell us what you saw.
Yes, hi. I was leaving my workplace, which is like a few hundred meters, a quarter of a mile from where the attack took place. And when I came out in the street, it was like chaos. And then I saw injured people, a woman, especially a woman without feet and calves. And she was like carried away towards an ambulance.
How many injured people do you think were there? I mean, we see images of blood on the streets. We know 2 people have been confirmed dead. Just describe for us what else you saw.
Yeah, what I saw was just people, upset people calling on the cell phones, and then everyone was like leaving the house, the buildings, which is in the middle of the city center where I work, and going out from the city. And I was biking today, which was, I mean, I could just grab my bike and go as fast as I could from the place. In the streets there were ambulances, police cars, all coming from all.
So the reaction from
like
security and emergency services was quick?
Yes, I think so. I don't know, because I heard helicopters in the air a few minutes before I actually got to know about what happened. So I think it was quick, I guess, yeah.
You got on your bicycle and tried to get away from that city centre area as soon as possible. You saw a lot of people running away. What were they telling you? Did they give you a sense of what perhaps played out? No, I don't think so. But there was some insecurity situation, because there were 2 other trucks in the street, exactly where I came out from my workplace. And then the police asked people like, "Who is this truck?" And then a man came like, "Oh, it's mine. Oh, you have to move it away," because of course everyone's scared that could be a bomb or whatever. That it was more coordinated, that it was not over. Yeah. Linda Flood, thank you so much for sharing with us a terrifying moment, a terrifying day for you and many other people in Stockholm this Friday afternoon. Appreciate it.
Breaking news overnight, President Trump's military strike on Syria, the first direct attack on Syria's regime from U.S. forces during that country's deadly civil war. We do have new video this morning from Syrian television. It was shot from some distance, but the graphic says it shows the scene of the attack. Of course, it was early in the morning there, still dark in Syria. And about an hour after the strike, President Trump spoke from Florida, explaining it was a vital U.S. interest to respond to Syria's use of chemical weapons. Syria's leaders have responded, calling it an act of aggression by the U.S., and Syria's ally Russia has also condemned the attack.
Here is what we know right now. The attack began at 4:40 a.m. local time. 59 Tomahawk missiles fired from 2 warships in the Mediterranean. The attack lasting approximately 35 minutes. The Syrians and Russians claiming 6 were killed.
Well, the Kremlin is calling the U.S. strikes an act of aggression against a sovereign country carried out using an invented pretext. Moscow also says the strikes simply violate international law. Now, that's according to President Putin's official spokesperson. With more on that, Roman Kostrov joins us live from central Moscow. Very direct language being used there, Roman. What else do we know?
Absolutely. Well, we did get the reaction from the Kremlin this morning, as well as various other branches of the Russian government. You already mentioned that Dmitry Peskov quoted Vladimir Putin by saying that he considers the U.S. missile strikes an act of aggression against a sovereign nation under a made-up pretext, and it is a violation of international law. He also added that the Syrian army does not have any chemical weapons at the moment, and this fact was documented by the United Nations chemical weapons watchdog. He also added that Vladimir Putin considers the fact that the use of chemical weapons by terrorists is ignored is further deteriorating the situation in Syria. Also, Vladimir Putin said, according to Dmitry Peskov, that the purpose of this strike by the United States was to distract international attention from scores of civilian victims in Iraq. Now, Russia's foreign ministry just a short while ago also issued their statement, and just to recap, they said that United States once again demonstrated a thoughtless approach. They bombed a country that's fighting against international terrorism. United States actions are illegal, and Russia will now halt the deal with the U.S. military, preventing incidents and ensuring flight security in the operation in Syria. Well, we already got a response to that from U.S. Strategic Command, who said that Russia discussion on sharing space awareness data relatively quickly, ready to facilitate conversation with Russia on this matter. So that's the latest what's going on with that. Meanwhile, U.S. State Secretary Rex Tillerson said that there was no contact with the Russian president on the strikes beforehand. However, he said all military agreements between Russia and U.S. have been observed. Meanwhile, Russian embassy in Syria still have no information on whether any Russian citizens became victims of this U.S. missile attack in Syria. Now, the Russian parliament is already also reacting to what happened this morning, and they're calling for an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, saying that an aggression was made against a UN member country.
Well, now here, the Turkish government has welcomed the U.S. missile strikes. Ankara says the bombardment of the Syrian air base is critical in ensuring the Assad regime's offensive does not go unanswered. Just hours before the U.S. missiles were launched, President Erdogan said he would support U.S. action in Syria.
The coalition forces, including us and the US, should come together. I talked to Mr. Putin as well. However, if Mr. Putin still could not understand whether or not Assad is behind this incident, the situation is sad for us.
In Paris, President Hollande confirmed French backing for the US action, saying France sought missile strikes in 2013 after a previous chemical attack in Syria. The French government says it was informed in advance by Washington, and Russia should use the warning to push for a political solution. President Hollande said, "I believe this operation was a response which must now be followed up at an international level with the United Nations if possible, so we can go all the way with sanctions against Bashar al-Assad and prevent this regime from using chemical weapons again to crush its own people." Italy has said it gave its backing to the US strikes. The Prime Minister said after speaking to the French and German leaders, all agreed the conflict must be resolved by negotiation, including with regime and opposition forces, overseen by the UN and with a decisive and constructive role for Russia. He went on to say last night's military action should not block but accelerate the political negotiations in order to achieve a long-term solution, which is the only serious antidote against the threat of terrorism.
Comment from the governor of the Homs province, who spoke to us and says that Islamic State's now launched an offensive in that area following those US airstrikes this morning. He also said that the terrorists have specifically targeted oil-rich areas near Palmyra, but so far, he says they're being held back. Now, a bit more about that Shayrat Air Force Base. It's nearly 45 kilometres southeast of the city of Homs. You can get a hands on the map there. It's considered one of the most active bases in the country, equipped with 2 runways and around 40 hardened aircraft hangars. It's also equipped with surface-to-air missiles, and the governor of Homs province says plays a crucial role in the fight against Islamic State in Syria.
The Shayrat airfield supports airstrikes against Islamic State. With its help, the Syrian army managed to liberate numerous areas near the city of Palmyra. The U.S. missile strike is an act of aggression against the Syrian Arab Republic, with the aim to weaken its ability to fight ISIL. This is direct support for terrorists in this region. According to all international regulations, this aggression should be condemned. At this time, the Syrian army is fighting against the terrorists, following them to the east of Palmyra.
As we've heard from the governor of Homs' statement, the Syrian government and army are saying that this American attack has unwittingly benefited ISIS, which was recently pushed out of the ancient city of Palmyra, the mountains and gas fields surrounding it.
NBC News has reported that oil prices surged more than 2% on Friday after the United States launched dozens of cruise missiles at an airbase in Syria. U.S. President Donald Trump said he had ordered missile strikes against a Syrian airfield from which a deadly chemical weapons attack was launched earlier this week. Trump declared that he acted in America's national security interest against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. The strikes rattled global markets. Jeffrey Halley, senior market analyst at futures brokerage OANDA in Singapore, said the U.S. cruise missile strikes have seen crude oil jump over 2% in a straight line. While oil prices surged as traders priced in what has in the past been called a Middle East risk premium, and safe haven products like gold jumped, stock markets and the U.S. dollar slumped.
Russian police defused an explosive device found in a flat in St. Petersburg just 3 days after a suicide bombing rocked the city's metro system. Police evacuated the building on Thursday, April 6th, and arrested 3 suspects who were found inside the flat. Witnesses told 2 Russian news sources the suspects were all from Central Asia. Investigators are trying to figure out if they are connected to the alleged metro bomber, 22-year-old Akbar Jan Jalilov. Jalilov is suspected of detonating a bomb on board a Russian metro train Monday, killing 14 people, including himself. 50 others were injured as well. Jalilov was a Russian citizen born in the Central Asian country of Kyrgyzstan. Russia's investigative committee says they have located several suspects from Central Asia who are believed to be connected to Jalilov, but they didn't confirm if that includes the suspects arrested on Thursday.
There's been a mixed reaction after ETA said it will give up all its weapons this Saturday. The move by the Basque separatists stops short of fully disbanding the organisation, and Madrid, which refuses to negotiate with the group, has said ETA should not expect anything in return from the Spanish government. On the streets of Bilbao, however, there was a more positive reaction to the separatists' planned handover. This man said, "I really support the disarmament. I'm a sympathiser, not with ETA, but with some of the political ideas. It is time to recognise that the people in this region deserve peace." This woman said, "In my opinion, it was about time. All the Basque society feels satisfaction after suffering terrorism for many years. Now this is what has to happen, and I'm very happy that they've reached an agreement. I hope that everything goes well." ETA's decision to disarm came shortly after the Basque parliament called on it to give up its weapons on Thursday. Founded to create a sovereign nation, more than 800 people died in the group's quest to break away from Spain.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has long suffered from conflict, corruption, and political crises. But recent clashes between government forces and rebel militia have taken a grim turn. Last month, 40 policemen were decapitated in Kasai province, and mass graves have been found containing the bodies of Congolese rebels. The UN has also confirmed that 2 of their experts, Michael Sharp and Zaida Catalan, were killed along with their interpreter.
We believe that there's likely grounds that this was a form of criminal act, but we need to determine cause of death.
The attacks stem from a rebellion that began last year when President Joseph Kabila refused to step down.
Elections in the Democratic Republic of Congo were scheduled to be held in November of 2016. However, they've been delayed, and while they are officially meant to take place in 2017, very little progress has been made towards actually holding them.
The fighting has led to the deaths of more than 400 civilians and the displacement of more than 637,000 people. The International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor says both the government and fighting militia could be guilty of war crimes. But justice is likely to be delayed as the violence continues.
Scientists are attempting to use an Earth-sized telescope to find direct evidence of supermassive black holes. To be clear, scientists haven't created a telescope the size of Earth, but they are using telescopes from all over it, which are collectively called the Event Horizon Telescope. The term Event Horizon refers to the area around a black hole where gravity's pull is so intense, nothing can escape it. It is also known as the point of no return. Scientists are hoping to get images of two supermassive black holes, one that's about 25,000 light years away from us in our Milky Way galaxy, and the other is actually 2,000 times larger than the Milky Way's black hole and is located in the M87 galaxy. Once all the observations are complete, it could take until December to fully understand the evidence that's been collected. But even then, we won't fully know the scope of what we're seeing until we repeat the process over many years to track the changes in behavior of one of the universe's most mysterious objects.
Well, today in Washington, Rob and I and many of the team are here. Hyperloop One is now 250 employees strong. We just came from Vegas 24 hours ago and saw the last tube of the first full-scale Hyperloop in the world being built that we're going to have towards our Kitty Hawk moment and show the world that Hyperloop works. We're the only company in the world that's actually building it. And the Vision for America is announcing a number of initiatives and routes that Rob Lloyd, our CEO, is going to speak to that we're very excited that comes out of our global competition. Routes all over America that can solve all of the traffic and logistics problems that are causing so much friction and pain in people's lives in America.
And we're now showing an image right now of what the Hyperloop looks like. This is a proof of concept here.
No, that's real. That's not a proof of concept. That is not computer graphics. That is real on the screen right now. That's what we built.
I appreciate that. No, I appreciate that. That is absolutely real.
Yeah.
But the question I was going to ask is, in terms of rolling this out in a meaningful way, what kind of timeline could we be talking about, and what are the true costs? Because there's the technology itself. But then when you start talking about digging tunnels, if in fact that is the approach to take, it becomes very expensive very quickly. Rob.
Yeah, I think the most exciting part about Hyperloop is we're at least 2/3 the cost of high-speed rail. We need much less land, and we can go both above ground or underground to come into city centers. Many of the projects that we're highlighting today that we've been reviewing as well with transportation experts over the last couple of days cover all of those use cases. We can go in a dense urban corridor like the Northeast. We can use big open spaces like in Colorado or Nevada or Texas. And the idea of going from Denver to Vail in under 10 minutes for you ski enthusiasts, I think is something that would really, really change our experiences. So.
An aviation company near Seattle wants people to be able to fly from small city to small city without dealing with huge prices and big, bustling airports. Zunum Aero said Wednesday it's working on an electric airplane that could travel short distances in less time than it would take you to drive. The company hopes its green proposal will entice regional airlines who've cut costs by opting for larger jets that carry more passengers. That's meant less room for small planes and the smaller airports they serve. Zunum Aero wants to focus on those smaller airports, which cost less to land at than larger ones. The company hopes its plane's design will save on fuel costs as well. Together, those factors could make tickets on Zunum Aero's planes far cheaper than traditional flights. According to 2001 data from the Bureau of Transportation Statistics, more than 90% of people traveling less than 500 miles made their trips by car rather than air. Between 500 and 750 miles, that number was still more than 60%. Zunim Aero wants to take advantage of those trends. It plans to make 10 to 50-seat regional planes that could start carrying cargo as early as 2020 and people shortly thereafter.
According to Tech Radar, Facebook has announced the release of an AI assistant known simply as M for its Messenger app. The assistant will pop into your chats and suggest actions it can perform for you depending on what you're talking about. M is not intended to be an in-your-face and always-present assistant. Instead, the system will quietly analyze your conversations in real time and call M to action when you use keywords that trigger its capabilities. At the moment, the actions M is able to take include sending stickers, sending payment requests, initiating apps such as Uber and Lyft, starting polls, sharing your location, and formalizing plans.
Many European flights were grounded for days when a volcano in Iceland erupted in 2010. Since then, tourism to the island nation has surged, but the hundreds of thousands of visitors do not realize an even larger volcano is due to erupt. Well, Michelle Miller is on a glacier in southern Iceland with what would make this eruption so dangerous. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning. Well, you see that wall of ice behind me? That is the outflow of a massive glacier that sits atop Katla, one of Iceland's most active volcanoes. An intricate system of sensors monitors the glacier's every move, because when Katla erupts, it won't be fire, but floods that engulf the valley below. In Iceland, travelers come revved up for adventure. They board oversized Humvees or snowmobiles to crisscross glaciers thousands of years old. This one is called Myrdals. Björn Hafstensson has been leading glacier tours for the past 3 years. All of those tourists that come up here, is this what they're coming to see?
Very few of them know about Katla when they come up here.
Wow, look at this. He drove us about 5,000 feet up, scaling this glacier that holds a secret. Where are we standing right now?
On top of Katla.
Underneath all this ice, a volcano is ready to blow. What will we feel? What will we see?
We would see a lot of melting ice over here.
So it would start to literally melt before our eyes?
Exactly. We think it's capable of melting through 750 meters of ice in about 2 or 3 hours. So it happens really quickly. We have really short time to evacuate.
To understand his concern, go back to 2010, when the volcano next door blew up. Eyjafjallajökull drove plumes of hot ash into the sky, crippling global aviation.
We really don't know when it's going to happen.
Magnus Tumi Gudmundsson is with the University of Iceland. Does Katla have the potential to be just as dangerous?
It will be much more dangerous because potential for very massive big floods.
Over the past 1,000 years, Katla has erupted at least once, if not twice, each century, extending Iceland's coastline every time. You see that mountain over there? That's called Peters Island. That's because when it was originally named, it was completely surrounded by water. Scientists predict that when Katla erupts, the massive ice sheet sitting on top of it will melt, creating a flash flood that could wipe out everything in its path. That includes the town of Vik, the picturesque village of around 300 that now hosts up to 3,000 tourists a day.
We didn't know that this was an active one.
Yeah, we didn't know that it's ready to blow.
Katla last erupted in 1918 when it sent a torrent of water, mud, and ice into the valley below. In the past year, a series of stronger than usual earthquakes put everyone on high alert. How often are you having those earthquakes?
We are having them average 3 times a day.
Earthquake sensors like this have been installed throughout the region to make sure the people of Iceland and those who are visiting are ready to evacuate when Katla comes to life.
We have to realize if you are going on top of an active volcano, you're always taking a small chance. That's life.
A U.S. government program designed to convert farmland to wildlife habitat has triggered the spread of a fast-growing weed that threatens to strangle crops in America's rural heartland. The weed is hard to kill and, if left unchecked, destroys as much as 91% of corn on infested land, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It is spreading across Iowa, which accounts for nearly a fifth of U.S. corn production, and in 2016 exported more than $1 billion of corn and soy. According to Iowa's top weed scientist, the destructive weed, a type of pigweed called Palmer amaranth, has spread through seed sold to farmers in the conservation program.
Wow. Is this possibly a siphonophore?
Not long ago, the crew aboard NOAA's Okeanos Explorer came across a particularly impressive siphonophore. Though the creature seems to be traveling alone, that's far from the case. What appears to be a single entity is actually a collection of many, many smaller organisms, each providing a specialized skill that furthers the community as a whole. This one's notable as it's impressively intact, something less often seen among such colonies. While anyone coming upon such a site would no doubt feel the urge to get a closer look, the team advises against it, as siphonophores can pack a very painful sting. This one was observed on March 14th during an expedition of the remote Pacific.